Give a round of applause to Jullian Gomes. And this session, we are going to be talking about the global scene, really playing internationally, mainly playing in different markets, and just how to go about that, how to also approach playing a different scene from what you would normally be used to if you're playing here locally. So I want to start with your first break into the international market. You know, like what was it? How did you get your first break into playing abroad?
Yeah, man, I think the first break was through Red Bull Music Academy back in 2010. And yeah, it was, for people that don't know about the Red Bull Music Academy, it's quite an intense process of a 60 to 70 page application, and you fill this out. It's quite an intense application, and you basically, if you get selected, you end up going to like a foreign country, like let's say it's been all over the place, so like Sao Paulo, London, the States, wherever. So you end up being in studio, and it's something similar like this. Like there's a conference in the morning, and then there's studio, and then at night you like at the clubs and stuff, and you literally sitting next to like for instance, Moody Man was at the academy that I did, and there's Erykah Badu and Flying Lotus, and it's just like it's a crazy experience. So yeah, that's when I first experienced, that was like my first international flight, basically, to go to the Red Bull Music Academy. And that's how it that's my first encounter, yeah.
Yeah. Did you play any gigs?
I did, bro. Yo, I played, my first gig was horrible, bro. Like I played, I think it's because I was very inexperienced. So I played at this ice skating rink, like, or ice, not an ice skating rink, what are they, like roller disco. Like, so like in Detroit, they have roller disco, which is like Moody Man's thing, and it's a big deal, and it's a big thing. So I ended up playing the roller disco, but it was in London. And I ended up playing there, and yo, bro, my set, I'm playing like proper, like deep tech, deep, like almost back then it was like Ancestral Soul was around. And I'm playing, and like people are like roller skating, and they're just not feeling me. They're like, yo, this is like not the music. Like people are literally telling me like, this is not a vibe, you know? So I had to learn. I was like 19 years old, 18 years old or something, 19 years old, 20, maybe around there. So I had no experience. And then when I look back on what was happening, because I went to the other roller skating floor, and I saw Moody Man playing, and he was playing like proper Motown, disco, like proper, like just very like Detroit sound, Motown sound. And then I realized, okay, cool, like I had no idea like what I was doing. And those situations have to happen when you first play abroad. And I can guarantee if you ask any DJ that's ever played abroad, they've had that situation where they played a set and they didn't fully understand what was going on, you know? And that was before like Instagram, before all of those things. So we couldn't see into like the vibe. It was basically just, that's the vibe. You had mails and Facebook, like it's cool. But now like, what I would suggest if you ever play overseas is just do a bit of more research, you know? Or otherwise you'll be like me, like getting, you know, telling people it's not a vibe, you know? So, yeah. But yeah, man, it happens, and I learn from it and you grow from it, you know?
Yeah. I remember like we did a gig last year in Toronto in Canada with Ralph, and no matter what I tried to play, people were just not into it. Like, you know,
exactly, man.
You try to change this, you try to get a bit harder, get a bit soft, But
Faster, yeah, you go
sometimes
faster,
you're
yeah.
playing in a wrong place. It's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
really people who are there for deep house or anything. They might be expecting something like trance or like a drum
Yeah.
and bass, DJ, and then you are very soft for them. Like,
Exactly, yeah.
um, so with the international market, like I'm really interested then, how would you advise somebody to firstly prepare for a gig, or after the experiences that you've had, what is your preparation once you get that international call-up?
I think when you do get international call-ups, it's mainly based on your music you make. So that's already a good indication into, this guy makes this music, or this artist makes this music. So therefore, he must play the similar lines in my specific situation. So I think yes, like the music you make, because I make my own music, I produce my own music, I release my own music. So they actually have an idea. And I don't know how you would research it, or like, but I think you just book based on your vibe, like what you play and what you're known to play. And like you said, sometimes you do play venues that just don't make sense, and like the vibe's not there. But then that's actually up to your agent or the person behind the strategy of where you're playing, is to kind of understand, okay, this is not going to be the right gig for you. I've done some research and it's not the vibe. Like, let's pass on this one. So it's also important to decide as an artist or a DJ, like which gigs you take, because like it's about positioning yourself in the right like lane. So yeah, I would say in terms of research, just do some research and see if it's the right event. Look at who's played there, what's the event about, what's the vibe about, like the clubs, like principles, morals, what they stand for, and you take it from there.
Yeah, and I'm interested to know, like, we've seen a few DJs, South African DJs, playing gigs abroad. Um, yourself, but people like the Capo as well. Lemon and Herb have went to Ibiza for some time. Um, has it become easier for a South African DJ to be playing in world stages?
Yeah, man, definitely. Like, I think there's endless, like, opportunities and possibilities about like how you break into the international market. But I do think it starts with, a sound you represent. Like even DJ Lag, it's his
Yeah,
sound, and
yeah,
he plays more overseas than he plays
yeah,
like in the country where the sound was founded.
yeah,
So it's about your sound. It's about obviously your positioning, your agency. Like how do you like break through that market? But I think I think it starts with the sound, and then it's nurtured by having the right strategy and the right team behind you to try and get you into a global market. Whether it be like Asia, the States, or Europe, or Africa, large like Africa as a whole. So yeah, man, it's just about the sound. I think it starts with your sound first. Yeah.
yeah. And how would you advise people to start getting into, if somebody's really looking into playing international stages, outside South Africa, whether it's in Africa or it's in other parts of the world? Because I hear you mentioning agency a bit. How can somebody get aligned with a certain agent, maybe who is looking after artists, especially African artists, to be playing abroad? Where would somebody start?
I think where you would start first is obviously like maybe cultivating like what you have at your disposal now, which is like the spirit of your music, like who you are as a human being, like the music you make, cultivating that, creating an audience locally, obviously, and then expanding it, because music is universal and we are in the digital age. So release your music on maybe different labels abroad. Like say I release an EP on an American label, a European label, like an Asian label. So just in different markets, like it's strategic. So now you have like a local following, you're gaining a American following and a European following, and it's possible more now than ever because of the internet, because of all these connections. So I would say it starts there, and then I say that once you build up a little bit of traction, I say that like more agencies will be switched onto. You know, they'll be like, oh, this guy released on this label. I actually like that label. There's an artist that we actually booked, you know, from that label. Let's check this artist out. And from that point on, then you get signed and like you just network. It's just about networking, you know, and I think that's the best place to start.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it always starts with the music, and then it starts with the team behind you and the strategy you have in mind.
Yeah, and just to add on that as well, like if you the best way I found that the best way to learn is to learn from what other people are doing. You know, so if you check which agency is representing Kulelo Song when he's in Greece, you know, like usually people will have like their booking details. They will say maybe on their social media, they'll say, okay, for Europe, here's an agency or a website or an email of somebody who's looking after my bookings. So you just check out the website of those agencies and see who else are they representing. Is my sound a sound that can fit into that agency? Because not all agencies are the same. You know, like an agency that represents Kerry Chandler might have 50 other artists. Will I have a chance if I were to sign with that agency? You know, all of those kind of things. But really, if you want to do research, look at the people who are already doing well. What are they doing? Who represents them? And can you yourself be part of that team? And I think that's also another good place to start as an art, even locally, you know.
Yeah, even locally, you're right. Yeah, it's just about seeing, and another point, what you could do in that way as well is you could see who can I collaborate with, like which artists can I collaborate with that will kind of give me a vein into that kind of call it, I won't say it click, but like just that kind of team, you know, like that kind of agency or environment or vibe or like club culture or whatever. So that's another point. But you have a very good point in saying that, yeah, just look at who's representing who, what they're doing, learning from it, and then not trying to use it as your blueprint, but like kind of designing your own blueprint around it and then taking it from there.
Yeah. I want to ask you about, though, like playing abroad, the notable differences, especially in terms of vibe, in terms of the energy, you know, when you play locally and when you play abroad. What are some of the things worth noting, especially things that are different from South Africa when you play in SA, when you play in Spain? Are there any differences, especially with regards to the energy in the club?
Energy-wise, yeah, I think energy will be different wherever you play, even locally. Like it doesn't really, it changes according to the brand of event or the event or the festival or the club. But if you want to take it, you know, in a like an international versus local scene, I would say most definitely, you know, every scene is different, and that contributes to the energy, you know. So I would say like South Africa, for me personally, I love playing in South Africa, as you know. Like this is like my home. This is where I love playing. The people, the energy is incredible. Europe, same thing. Like you get different experiences. You get incredible energy at different festivals and different vibes, and that's also an amazing thing. So I think you have to think of yourself as a global citizen, like a global artist, where you're gaining experiences across all these different energies, and you know you're absorbing it. But I would say, to get technical, there's a difference in infrastructure already. There's a difference in economy, you know, the spending power and all of these things. So that also contributes to how powerful the sound is or how big the festival can go, like the people sponsoring the event, how much money is within different scenes. So, for instance, experiencing a festival with crazy, you know, like a crazy setup is very different to experiencing like a festival that doesn't have the same amount of money to give you that experience, because it's not only about music, it's also about the experience, the visual experience. So that also creates the energy as well in terms of the vibe. So yeah, it comes down to a lot of things, you know. So, but yeah, in terms of energy and vibe, every vibe is different, and yeah, South Africa's definitely got vibe.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I just want to jump on a bit because you mentioned the spending power. As an artist, do you keep your rates the same, like when you play here, and if you get an international request, are your rates the same, or do you bump the cheese up?
I, I, I think like it's more about like the economy, bro. Like you could charge the same rate in South Africa, but the exchange rate will make it seem as if you're gaining more out of like a European or American event, you know. So it's not so much about like, okay, cool, we're going to Europe, we're going to charge more. I think it is, but it also isn't. I also think you can only work within the constraints of the gig economy. So if we're in South Africa, you know, you can't charge beyond a certain point because people, the economy is under, as for instance, like what we're going through now, the economy is going through a lot. People don't have that spending power to spend, let's say 250, 300, 400, 500 rand to go to a nightclub, just a nightclub, not a festival, just a nightclub. So I think you have to think of it in that way where, yes, you would charge more to play in Europe because you're a global artist now and you're international. But it also depends on what event you're playing in Europe. Is it a festival? Is it a 200 capacity club? Are you still breaking through? You know, you don't have you don't have that power yet. You don't have that like negotiation power to be like, no, I want to DJ for 10,000, 5,000, 6,000 pounds. Like even go further, bro, a million. Like some DJs are doing €1 million, €2 million. Like it depends, you know. So you have to have the catalog basically. You have to have the brand. You have to have all of that behind you. But I think when you are introducing yourself to the market, yes, when you do your first gigs, you will see a very big difference in the economies, in the gig economies, in the spending power, in the infrastructure. And I think in that sense that, yes, you could say that you would charge a little bit more in Europe, you know. But yeah, that's the best way I can put it in a nutshell.
Yeah, yeah. I've heard of DJs, like local DJs, maybe wanting to play or wanting to establish themselves abroad, and the trick that they use, I don't want to say trick, but a strategy that they use is to look for gigs where they can play for free,
Yeah.
and sort of like fund themselves
Yeah.
to go.
We've all done that. Like I can guarantee you every single artist that has played abroad, has done a gig for free, has slept on someone's couch, has been in an overlay flight for like hours and hours lying down on a bench in the airport in the middle of nowhere. Like I can guarantee you that has happened. But that's a sacrifice you make. Like, you know, if you wanna be an artist and you want to travel the world playing music for people, that's one of the things that comes with it, that you accept and you actually see the beauty in it. Like you laugh at it later, you know. But yeah, you have to make those sacrifices that like, look, bro, I'm not just gonna come in the game and just start like going crazy with like the income I make. I have to balance it out. And I also have to know when it's enough. Like when have I done enough free gigs? Especially even in South Africa if you're starting. Like when is enough? Like when have I done all the gigs that I can do to get to the point that I'm now and be like, yo, cool. Like I can't like do free gigs anymore, you know. So you'll know basically.
Is it a strategy that also like usable locally to offer yourself to events, you know, for free? Because we were talking about this yesterday a bit about not really about knowing your value as a DJ, but obviously when you are new, not many people are willing to take out some money and book you. You know, is it a worthwhile strategy? Do you think it works to be able to offer yourself freely in exchange that hopefully after a few times, you know, your brand will get some traction?
I think it works, but you got to be very careful, man. It's a very fine line between exploitation and doing what's right. You know, in essence, I think if money is being made on the night, sure, like bargain with the promoter or the venue, like say, okay, cool, I'm not going to charge you a fee. I just want to come play at your venue or your event. And I just want to like do my thing and expose like what I have to offer. But can I have like maybe 200 Rand petrol or something? Like, can I have at least something like 200 Rand? Like, really? 200 Rand? Like, just petrol? I don't think you should be in a space where it's like, I've done it plenty of times, like where it's 0.00, like, and that's cool. But when I look back on it, and because I've been through it, I would say to someone, okay, cool, do that maybe a few times. But it has to get to a point where there's morals, and there's values, and there's like, cool, gents, like we made, like, I'm speaking in my terms, like the guys I work with in terms of like events. Gents, we made some cash tonight. Can we pay this artist like enough money? Like, because yes, they're upcoming, but we have to be like, we have to have morals. But I think a lot of promoters exploit, people in that sense. So you got to be careful of that. So I would say do it, have a balance, and understand that if you do it and you do well and you prove yourself, then that's like, tap yourself on the shoulder and be like, cool, man, like the next time I'm going to actually charge a rate now. And then also if you're releasing music, it's a very different game. Like if people are playing your music, I'll use FKA Mash as an example. Mash started, released one song, cool. Probably played a free gig here or there, cool. His fee was what it was, cool. But as he starts releasing more music and more music and more music, and it's good music, it's great music, now he's really like picking up himself, So now you can't go to Mash as a promoter and be like, hey Mash, remember like, like that time when you only had one song, because Mash is not the same Mash. Jullian's not the same Jullian. Like Coffee is not the same Coffee of 2000 and something. Like you can't expect, an artist to stay where you want them to stay to gain, and exploit their talents for your event. So you have to keep that in mind as a promoter and as an artist. And I would say don't get exploited, have balance, DJ for free I would say don't DJ for free, but DJ, do it once, twice, 3 times. But always just try and bargain. Get like 200 Rand petrol, man. Like, come on, like, seriously, bro. Something, bro. 200, it's cool. Yeah. Like, petrol, I'll go home, I'll play a 2-hour set, shop, cool. That's what I would suggest.
Cool. Before I get into questions now, I want to ask about, is it really worthwhile investing into getting into the international market? And I'm asking this because we've got such a healthy scene, the underground scene in South Africa is quite dope, there's a lot of support too. And there's people who do well here and can do well here only, or is it a preference thing? Would you advise people to kind of always spread and look onto playing international gigs?
I think don't take your scene for granted. We should never take South African electronic music or our scene for granted. Sure, we have our problems. We have like deep problems in South Africa, and that contributes to like what's happening in the economy and like gigs and stuff like that. But I think at the end of the day, like never take the scene for granted. And I said like a few days, I said like house music, deep house music will never die in South Africa. And I don't think it will. Because if you really trace back the lineage of like how house music arrived in South Africa, what it's done, and it's still doing its thing. You must understand that there's scenes in Europe that have house music has landed, done its thing, and it's disappeared. For it to still be doing its thing, like from the 80s, early 80s, like 1977, 80, something around that time, for it to still be doing its thing, I think you can't really take house music for granted in South Africa, electronic music for granted. So I think it's about us working together, doing things like this, respecting each other, and just enriching our scene, by kind of just doing what's right and like not forgetting. I think sometimes we forget, cool, let's go abroad, which is dope. I think we should go there. But don't take your scene for granted because it's where you started, it's where you're growing, it's where other guys will come up underneath you and through the scene again. So yeah, bro, don't focus just on one thing. You can have everything. You can be, the world's your playground. Like the world is your playground. So yeah.
Cool. Nice one, bro. Let's get into some questions, just by show of hands, if there's anybody who wants to ask questions.
Don't be shy.
Hi, Jullian.
How's it, bro? Are you?
I'm good. Well, I'm just gonna move to the side a bit. There's this song that you did, love song.
28. Okay.
28.
Cool.
Yeah. The animation there. Who did it?
Yo, that was Lesejo. He was a student
Not me.
at Wits. Yeah. Yeah, not this Lesejo. It was another Lesejo. But no, it was a student at Wits. And the cool thing about that is like, another thing is like you're using young talent. You know, like animation houses charge close to like maybe 500,000, 600,000 just to do animation because it's a lengthy process and it's a lot of work. So it's about young guys. Back then it was about young guys getting together and just making like some really cool art and music. And that's what we should be doing. And that's what I still do to this day, is I don't think about value in terms of art in the sense of how much money should we pay to get like a Love Song 28 video. Like who has the ability, who has the heart and soul to make art within that space? And you know, like that's like the amazing thing about that specific video. So yeah, man, that's like I don't know his company details, but I can get it for you,
Okay,
and I can pass it on.
Okay, thank you so much.
Cool.
Okay, to the topic. I actually watched an interview LSG did with China Chameleon. Yeah, and he was actually talking about, you know, like he started getting gigs from nowhere, and then all of a sudden, you know, somebody from Europe started calling him, and he actually doesn't know, he doesn't have any agency, he doesn't know exactly where to start. Now, if one of us actually had to be in the same situation, what do you do? Because you don't know what to charge, you don't know anything about traveling, you know.
Yeah, I think where you would start is maybe talk to your label. Like, for instance, in China's situation, it'd be like, talk to Kid Funk and be like, I just got a gig for, like, England. And do you know anyone that can assist me in the sense of with European bookings? But I think what's important, even within South Africa or even Europe, just to have a nice booking contract. Simple one, just one page. This is what I need to perform, take rider. This is how I would like my payment options. For instance, maybe half before and then half on the signage of that specific booking contract, and half before, 7 days before the event or whatever. And then if it's got like very heavy logistic things like traveling abroad, just like, you know, you can find these contracts online if you look, and you can just use the information and design your own contract. And then I think that's the best way to start. And then I think from then on, you will get an agency, and an agency will be interested. But even myself, I don't have representation abroad. I don't have an agent abroad. Like, it all comes through a South African agency, so it's all homegrown. But sooner or later, when gigs start coming more and more, you have to get a representation like in Europe. So it's the ground up, bruh. Like, it starts somewhere and you just grow. Yeah.
And ask other guys too,
Exactly,
you know,
yeah.
who've been abroad.
Yeah.
And how do you charge for such a gig? Have you played there? You know,
Exactly, yeah.
So
Ask.
so you know, like, can you really work with the people that are saying they wanna book you? You know,
Yeah.
don't wanna be stranded in a country. There's no
Exactly.
accommodation, or a return flight is not booked, something like that. Cool. We'll get to Bruno.
What's up, Julian?
What's up, bro?
In 2011, you played at Sona Fest.
Yeah.
Just elaborate more on that experience and the representation, like you said, and how that worked.
So like Sona Fest is, for people that don't know Sona Fest, it's one of the biggest festivals in the world. It's a huge deal, man, for any person to play there. Like, doesn't matter where you come from. It's regarded as one of the biggest festivals in the world. So the way I played that festival was through Rebel Music Academy again. I think Coffee also played, and Gulo. So it works as you do the academy, and then the next year, like, if the academy feels like, okay, cool, well, let's put this person on at Sona. So yeah, like, I think that's what happened in my case. But like I will stress, like I think as you move on and as you play a lot of gigs abroad, it's very important you find the right representation, because you have to, it's either you find the right representation or you base yourself in Europe for summer. Because you need to be within a scene to be working in it. You know, it's like, and that's one thing I've learned. Like maybe that's one of my mistakes that I've kind of picked up, is that you have to be within a scene or you have to be within representation in that scene, because you can't just only rely on making music, putting it out, and that's cool. Like people know my music and maybe I'll get bookings. I think sooner or later, once you crack and once you get inside, you have to get representation. You have to find people that are on the ground there, or you have to invest and you just have to go and sleep on someone's couch for like 6 months and play gigs all over Europe. You know, that's what I would suggest. It's quite complicated, but I think that's the best way to start. You know, you need to be in the scene that side, with representation or with the other.
Cool. Bruno.
Thanks a lot. Afternoon, everyone. My name is Bruno.
Oh, cool. Sure.
Yeah. No, Jullian, I want to know, well, as a vinyl DJ, we get a lot of questions about a repress of your Love 28 record. Yeah. So is there a chance that you...
It's sold out, right? I think, that press is done. Like, it was a limited edition. Ox blood splatter, like you saw, it was like a colored vinyl,
right?
And that's like, it's done its thing. It's done. It's pressed and it's limited edition. But I will try and see if I can get like copies. But I've tried. Even Late Dreamer, it's like it's done. It's finished. So that's the thing about vinyl. If you do have vinyl and you collect vinyl, it's once it's done, and then once you have the vinyl, I've heard of some records that guys bought for 260 rand. Limited editions, then they go up to like $5,000 because of the value of the vinyl. So unfortunately, it's the value of an artist only increases when they pass away, which is sad. So, but that's just the way it is with vinyl and just music in general. So, yeah.
And then last question. Yeah. As a person, I think maybe you are one of the few guys who has pressed music on vinyl.
Yeah.
And obviously, there are guys who want to press music on vinyl because, you know, of their lifestyle and stuff. So what kind of an advice or a process you would give to, you know, the producers out there? Thanks.
I think pressing vinyl right now, you have to, there's a site called Diggers Factory. Diggers Factory. If you Google Diggers Factory, I can give it to you after here, but it's called Diggers Factory. And basically, it's a site that you upload your music, cool, and then you do like a campaign. And the campaign, you can say, I only want to press 200 records. And once these 200 records, people actually have to buy the record. And once they've bought the record, it gets pressed. So once it hits 150 records, it gets pressed, and then it gets shipped out to people who bought it all over the world. That's the best way to press records starting up. Or you have to have a distributor in Europe or wherever that presses your music, or the label you release with would press your music on vinyl. So yeah, it's the best way. But check out Diggers Factory for now, just because of COVID has like changed the whole vinyl game because of export costs, and it's very expensive to do records now. So Diggers Factory is an option, and yeah, that's the one for now.
Cool. Do we have another question over there?
You guys can ask me any questions, It doesn't have to be about international stuff only.
If I could add also, like with the vinyl pressing, there's a website called mpo.fr.
Yeah.
If you want to do it like independently, you can do that. mpo.fr. There's information of how many you can press, you know, alone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so Jullian, I think as DJs, we all have a sound or music that we stand for. So having played internationally, have you ever had to compromise so that the people are pleased?
It's a good question, bro. Compromise my sound, never. Play within a different energy, within my sound, definitely. I think you playing, for instance, but even in South Africa, like I could be playing in Soweto and I'm playing 115 deep, just nice and deep property. Then the next day I'm playing like maybe at a festival in Cape Town and it's a little like 122, 123, but deep, but more deep techie. Then I'm playing in Ibiza and it's a 124, like at least 124, sometimes 125, it depends. I struggle to play on 124, I'll be honest, but in Europe, it's a little bit more faster. It's a bit more. It's a bit more electronic, a little bit more techy. And I remember when I was playing in Ibiza with Coffee and Timber, and I was playing, and there was a break, and Timber was like, "Yo, man, you're playing too many songs with breaks," because like in Europe, they don't like breaks. They just like they like build-ups, but they don't like the way we love breaks. You know, when a song breaks down and it's like you can like chill and rest and then it's like it comes back and that's like a vibe for us. But in Europe, they don't like that. And I didn't understand that. And you see, that's what I'm saying is like, you only learn by doing things. You only learn by being in situations. And then it's like you grow through being uncomfortable. So yeah, that's what I noticed about Europe. It's just, I have changed my sound, but it's still deep house, it's still deep tech, or it's techno, but it's still soulful. It will always be soulful. And I won't compromise on that at all. I must get the set and send it to you so you can listen. Because you're probably thinking I'm playing EDM.
Cool. I'd like to ask, with regards to music production, sorry, I'm here.
Sorry. Sure.
What kind of gets you out of, like what happens to you when you get jaded, and also has traveling and getting more gigs affected how you make music now?
Oh, that's like the greatest question ever, bro. Like that's something that's literally happening in my life. And like, I think when you gig so much, like it's hard for you to get in a zone where you can make music in peace. Because like, if you play 6 gigs in a weekend, 7 gigs in a weekend, maybe 3 of those you were flying, you get back, you're exhausted, your energy is low, you're trying to make music, but you're just so tired, like it is an energy thing. So I think, and then Corona came and like shut down everything. So I've noticed that, yes, that if you're really busy and you get jaded and you're like working too much in terms of doing too many gigs, that you don't have much time to like, get in the zone and energy of making music. So that just comes down to your personal like artistic direction. Like, do you want to do more gigs or do you want to write an album? And how can you balance it out? Like, maybe let's not take a gig in Kuruman that you have to drive 6 hours and you have to finish your album in the next month. So let's rather do maybe a gig maybe Durban, sharp comeback. So it's about strategy. It's about seeing what works for you and what's important to you. Do you want to be gigging or do you want to make music? So you have to decide. I know some guys don't like DJing as much. They like making music more. I like a balance. So it's dependent on what you want.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
and also it can get to you like the gigging, you lose your zone. Like when you're working every day in studio, it's different from when you're working only twice a week.
Yeah.
Especially as a person who's used to working seven days a week.
Yeah.
I realized like with my album in 2017, I was always in studio before the album was released. But so once the album was out, we toured the whole year,
Exactly.
like almost 2 years after that of touring, one day in studio here. You lose your touch, and I still haven't gotten it back, So I try to get a balance now of between gigs and studio. But if I could really do more studio work more than gigs, I would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to add to that, just decide. Like, finish your album and then tour your album. And then halfway through touring your album, start your next album. And then, like, just keep consistent, Because if you go too long, and it's hard to get that momentum again. So unless you like D'Angelo or something, who releases an album and like he still comes back. So yeah, man.
Yeah, we'll get to you.
Hi, everyone.
Hey.
Hey, Jules. My name is Zetu. I'm a DJ and a vocalist. First of all, kudos to the music that you've been giving us.
Thank
It's
you.
quite timeless.
Thank you very much.
So I just wanted to find out, when it comes to production, right? Because you don't bombard us with music, which is great, because you let it marinate and we thoroughly hear what you're trying to say to us through music. How often do you release your EPs or your albums? That's the first question. And then second question is, when it comes to vocalists, do you get an influx of features or collabos? Or how can one person go about to get a feature with you?
Okay, cool. So just remind me on the first question. It's about, sorry, I'm trying to.
How often do you release?
So how often do I release? How often I release really depends on if the vision feels complete, you know? So that's why I'm not releasing like 36 track albums every third month or fourth month. So for me, music is spiritual. It's part of what I'm trying to say as an artist. And my albums, my music has to feel like art. It has to feel like a story. It can't just feel like, oh, cool, I need to do an album and put 10 house tracks on it, and then I'll get some gigs from it, and then I'll make money and buy things. Because that feels empty to me. For me, it feels like, how do I connect with people because I have this calling? How do I make music that really gets through to people and connects with them? I might not be the biggest or have the most streams, but how do I affect people? And that's how I see I should release music. That I would just say that's how I release music, basically. As you can tell, it's now and then. So, and then the second question is features. I think for me, it's about energy, hey? Like a lot of, and I think Lesejo will also like agree with me on this. Like sometimes as producers, we like, yo, man, I need to get this vocalist on this track because like if I do, then I got an instant hit. And it's not always the case. Sometimes the energy just doesn't align. And you feel like a lot of vocalists, especially yourself, I can imagine, would charge like a upfront fee. Like this is how much I charge for my session or whatever, and then we can discuss royalties afterwards. So I think it's about energy. Like I'm not going to mention names here, but I've had songs in the line of working with some like really incredible big vocal, like crazy big, but then the energy just wasn't there. It felt like it was too business. It was too like, no, I need my money and this is what, and that's fine. But like, you're not even talking about the music. For me, I talk music, then I talk money, but I still talk money. Where some artists talk money, and then it's music, and then it's money again. You know, so it's like, it's the energy that I share with you. If you vibe with me, I vibe with you, we're gonna make really good music. But if we're not vibing, it's not gonna happen.
Thank you.
Cool.
Does it happen organically with regards to, because you wanted to know?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't answer part of your question. I'm open to vocalists. You send me some stuff, I listen to it. If I feel like I can be within that zone, cool, like let's do it, you know? So more than welcome. Anyone's always welcome to send me something. And if I feel like, from a vocalist perspective, if I feel like, yo, man, I need to work with this person, or right now my sound has changed into that way, I can facilitate this vocalist in this way, even producing a song for this vocalist, then I will do it, you know? So yeah, please send me some vocals. So, cool.
Hey, Jullian.
How's it, bro?
Coming to her question, especially when she says the feature, and you mentioned that the energy level, it's not like vibing, and you paid like that particular artist. So
your money's gone, bro.
It's gone, bro.
Your money's gone, bro. Like it's over. You just have to do something with it. It happens. It happens. It hasn't happened to me much. I don't know about Lesejo, but it happens where you pay even a remixer. You pay a remixer and it's cool, but like it just doesn't.
So do you still like get it out like while it's
sometimes? I think sometimes it depends. Like maybe you do a dub, chop up the vocals, and do something. But you figure it out. But it hasn't really happened to me in that experience, in terms of a vocalist, you know. But you do pay for things sometimes within the arts industry, and you might not get like what you expected, whether it's a master artwork or. So you just have to try and work with the person, be like, listen, can we maybe go this way? And at times, artists have the biggest egos. So they won't want to get out of their comfort zone and be like, no, I don't really sing like that, or I don't really remix like that, or I don't master like that. This is what I have, you've paid me. In that way, a bridge is burnt, you know, so you don't work with that person anymore. So, yeah.
Okay. And some artists, like what you pay for, they would be, let's say you paid some money for a feature, and it's not really sounding good as you thought, and then you might ask again, man, like, can we change here? Can we do a completely new thing? You know, and usually what I've seen is that the artists that ask for the most money, they don't want to redo stuff.
Exactly.
You know, they just like, man,
ego. It's ego.
You paid for it. This is what you get. You know. And,
so what I can say to that is, don't always look at, I need to work with this, but like curating art and understanding like talent and art is very important as a producer. So you have to look at like an artist, be like, okay, this person doesn't have a name, but they're incredible. Like, I need to work with this vocalist. They're amazing. Let me work with them. It's not about like, Lesejo knows this as well because he also produces, like, I need to get a certain feature vocalist on this song because then I'll give it to radio and maybe it will pop off, and then like I'll get like more gigs from this song or whatever, like, you know. And it doesn't have to be like that. You have to just find the vocalist, does it align with your music, and work with that vocalist, no matter how big, how unknown, or how much they charge, or how much they don't even charge you. It depends. But like I said, the energy is very important, man. Very, very important.
Cool. Let's get one more.
Okay, addressing the question to both of you, right?
Cool.
It was discussed that we should find our own signature sound when it comes to music production. How long did it take you guys from the beginning of your production to where you are now to say, okay, now I think I have found my signature? You know, how was the process? How long did the process take for you?
Do you want to go first? Let
me go first.
You go first.
So when I started, obviously, like as a beginner, you kind of like just into, I wanna start a song and I wanna finish a song, you know, like just to see if you can actually do it. But then as you do that, you start getting into things that you like. So what I used to do when I didn't know what I wanted to sound like, I would try and copy producers. Not to release or anything, but I would try and listen to something Ed Jazz did and see, can I reproduce a similar sound and mix it with something, maybe I want to reproduce what Ralph did, just to get used to listening and recreating ideas. You know, that gives you some kind of practice. You know, as you go, you don't need to release those songs because you will be sounding like a cheap copy of someone, you know. But it just gives you the practice to kind of curate your own sound. And I mean, I've been producing since 2008, and I think I only really found my style like in 2013. But it changes also, you know, like it changes through time. But once you have it, it's almost like you don't really go for sounding the same as the previous project, but automatically it happens. You know, that becomes now, you know, when you are sure, okay, this is my kind of sound.
Yeah, I think similar line to Lesejo is just, you obviously study, you like producers, you obviously grew up on music. You listen to music, whether it be your parents' records, or maybe your parents didn't listen to music like my parents. My parents just listened to Grease. I don't know if you know Grease. It's a very white thing, right? It's Grease stuff. I don't know. It's like 80s stuff. But anyway, like I was introduced to black music through like Michael Jackson. And then from Michael Jackson, I studied, but who does Michael Jackson like? Oh, he likes James Brown. Okay. And who does James Brown like? And that's how I went down. Okay, then I connected everything. And that's how I introduced myself to black music, is by understanding and by like learning from the great artists, you know? So I'd say that's how you find what you like. And then obviously with house music, like you grow up into it and you're like, okay, I was born into house music basically because it was always been played around the house, so, or my cousin's house. So that's how I grew up on house music with the inner city and et cetera, et cetera. So you find your sound, you know your sound in terms of what do I dig, you know? And then I think from that point on, like you make your sound, but I think while like not copying, like you know, like you're not copying artists. Like, it's not like I'm trying to make a jazz song, or I'm trying to make an Usunlade song, or like a Roko kind of sound or whatever. But it's just like you try and make a song that's kind of maybe close to that level, and then from that point on, you diversify yourself, and it's like, cool, like how do I make this my own? You know, so I would say that the best way to do that is to find your I call it the space of like darkness, where it's like you just escape and you don't even know what you're doing anymore. And that's how you get a sound. Like when you're in studio, like it's like there's a higher power creating music now, not you. And I think that's how you definitively, like that's how you find your sound. And then how do you evolve your sound is a more important question. It's like, how do you evolve? Because as you can tell, like some sounds come and some sounds go very quickly. You know, for example, Durban Kwaito was one of them. It came, it was dope, cool. And then it went to Gqom, sharp, cool. Now we're into Amapiano, cool. Then from Amapiano, where are we going next? Like Amapiano to me is like New Age Kwaito. I don't know why people fight so much. I don't know why there's this war about Amapiano and house, because it's like Vinny and Spikiri fighting back in the day. It doesn't make sense. It's like New Age Kwaito and house. Like Vinny's house, Spikiri's Kwaito. It's cool. It's New Age Kwaito. So I think sounds come and go, but I think define your sound, and even when you define your sound, make sure that it cannot be copied. Like, and that is very difficult to do. Like, no one can sound like Coffee. No one can sound like Capo. No one can sound like me. No one can sound like a lot of different artists. But someone might be able to sound like that person because they're inspired by them. But make sure that your sound can never be copied, because when people start biting, it dilutes the stuff. And then all you'll be known for is the founder of that sound. Cool, I was the founder. But then, like, if you can find that balance of having a sound not replicated, I think that's like a whole nother level of making a sound. So yeah, it's very difficult though.
Cool.
Very difficult, yeah.
We're gonna take 2 more questions and then move on to the next session.
Afternoon, gents.
How's it, bro?
Hola.
Sharp. Thanks for the music, both of you. Ne? From Les, I have to say, Les, like the campaigning and stuff and putting himself out there, being at Go-Go, it did the works for him, Obon.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't like come from way back, but the manner in which he's approaching the industry, I think big up to you, my brother, ne, in that regard. But Jullian, I have 2 questions for you, ne?
Sure.
The first one is about residency. How is it important for a DJ to find a residency and build a name in a residency and remain in that residency? And then I'll come with the second one after.
Okay, residency, very important. I think we've all had it. Like I had a residency in CBD in Pretoria at Amaros. Like we've all had residencies. I think it's very important, man, because you learn your craft there. You know, like, and I think residencies are underrated because nowadays we're just doing 1 hour set there. Cool, I got another gig. 1 hour set, 1 hour set, 1 hour set. A residency, you have to maintain, control, and create a vibe for the whole night. Like we're talking about 7, 8 hours, sometimes 10 hours. Back in the day, maybe it was 10, 12 hours because clubs closed later. But now, rounded off to about 7 hours or 6 hours. So for 6 hours, you have to hold people, create a vibe. So residencies, I would say definitely do residencies. And start at like wherever you're based. You know, wherever you're based, start there and then grow and then get another residency and another residency.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
The second question, being so well-traveled and having worked with the legends like Vinny, Christos, and the likes, because you are like a new school kind of kid, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm the youngest OG, bro.
Shout out to you, Jullian. So I want to know, You spoke about our music. So where do you think this thing is going in terms of the vibe, in terms of our scene, the dance music culture?
It will always be there. Like I said, it will always be there. Like house music, even if you feel like maybe they don't play it on radio as much and it's not really on TV, and you must understand that broadcasting is about trends, and that broadcasters sell advertising space according to markets that make sense for them. So if the trend is what the trend is now, this is the lane we're going in. But the reason why I say like our scene is healthier than most, I think the only thing we struggle with is bigger problems than our scene, which is economically and inequality and all of these things are very big problems in our country. So the problem here is not the music or the vibe or people or whatever, or the industry or whatever. It's about the economy. It's about, working together. How do we pump more money into the scene so there's more money here for us to all like live off the scene, So that I would say is the bigger question. So yeah.
Cool. Last question.
Hi, Jullian.
How you doing, bro?
Good, man. Just want to ask a personal question. I'm a producer.
How personal, bro?
No, I'm just joking. It's not going to be personal.
Cool.
It's related to what you do.
Okay, cool, bro.
I'm a producer, but I find it hard sometimes to make a beat or to create something that is going to play and make sense. As a producer, it's always a problem for many guys, even the guys who are up there. But for the Love Song 28, I just want to know on what kind of environment were you in when you first clicked the first button or whatever instrument that you're using, or when you were making the pads or the keys. What made you click that first thing? Because that creativity, it's not easy to find it anyway. That specific song, it's endless, I just want to know what was it behind that song and the creativity behind it, so that maybe I might be inspired.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
I think I get asked that question a lot. I would say it's uncompromisable. Like you can't compromise. Like it's just the way I see it is like in that moment. Like if I have to take myself back now, I felt scared. I felt fearless at the same time. I felt free. I felt like so many different things in one. And I feel like what makes great music or what makes music is being vulnerable, is not understanding what's going to happen the next day, is being anxious, is having anxiety, is not knowing, not knowing what's going to happen with this song is very important. And I think that's what creates the best music, is being free and being in a zone that no one can take you out of, and nothing in this world can take away from you. So it's about being free, and I think it's hard, like you just said, it's hard to make music these days sometimes, and a lot of producers do struggle with it. And I agree with you, because if you listen to music in general, from maybe, let's say, some of your favorite producers back in the day, whatever, the world is very distracted at this moment in time with a lot of different things, whether it be pandemic, social media, anxiety, depression, whatever it may be. But the question is, how do you use all these things to get lost and find yourself at the same time and help people find their way as well? So I would say it's a spiritual thing. It's about being grounded. It's about being vulnerable, fearless, and all of that in one, and making the music you believe in, and that no one can take that away from you. Simple, bro, but hard, it's cool.
Cool. Let's give a round of applause to Jullian Gomes.
Thank you, guys.